All right. Thank you for being here. For those who are watching the replay, I'm so glad you're here. We are going to dive into today's topic, which is enjoying your holidays without gaining weight and without losing your mind. That's the big trick, right? That's the big as if, right? So in the past, and if you feel comfortable, Debbie, to type in the chat what comes up for you. What are some feelings that come up when you think about the holidays? Anticipating the holidays. So if you want to just chat, you can unmute and talk either way, whichever you feel more comfortable with. For me, my first thought is sadly dread, feeling a bit of dread, feeling a bit of loathing, like a tightness in my chest of like all the expectation, anything like that. I'm not sure. Are you typing something? I can't see it. Okay. Oh, you have to hit send, I guess. Okay. Learning. Got it. And so that's why I want to topic it. That's why I want to talk about this topic, wondering how I can hold on to all the things, right? There's like all the moving parts for sure, right? That we feel like are, expectations, all this stuff from years and years and years of in the past doing stuff, not meeting up to those expectations, etc. So anyway, that's why it's important that we talk about ahead of time, because what'll happen is we get in our mind of all the things that we want to do, and we fall short of our expectations, and we turn to food for comfort very often. So that's why I want to talk about it. I think that this kind of getting ahead of it, or in the beginning of the month, the good news is we still have 55 days left of the year before New Year's. And I know one of the things, let me back up just a bit. So that's why it matters. So the way this training is going to work is we're going to do a little teaching. We're going to talk about why it matters, talk about how to overcome some of these issues. And then we're going to get like some of the specifics, dig deep into those. And then we're going to end with some Q&A if anyone has any questions or things like that. I'm still learning where to put people on the camera. So I apologize. I'm trying to figure out where I want to look. So, okay. Anyway, we'll have a Q&A. And if there's anyone who wants coaching, we have that available as well. So, at the very end, I'm going to offer a free resource for you guys that will really help set you up for success for the holidays. It's so great. We're in the beginning of the month. We have time to plan and think about it ahead of time. For those of you who don't know me, especially watching the replay, I'm Amy. I have lost 80 pounds after the age of 55 with the help of a life coach. It probably took me about 2 years to lose all the weight that I wanted, and I've kept it off for the last 3 years. So 3.5 actually. So I've had a couple Christmases under my belt, and some have been more successful than others. And so what I want to share with you today are some of the things that I've learned through trial and error, through mistakes that I've made, that hopefully I can help you guys avoid the mistakes that I made. So we're going to dive into the content. Okay, and talk about why it matters to start talking about this topic. There's so many years when I didn't think about it. Like our natural tendency is to let's not go there. Let's not think about it. Let's not focus on it. Next thing you know, January 1, you're like, what happened? I don't know. I don't know what happened. And then the following year, all you can think of is, the holidays. Like we joke around at our house, and around our house, it was one year Greg said, well, it's Halloween, so we already blew it. So why bother till January 1? So basically from the end of Halloween till January 1, let's just forget all about even thinking about it. The problem is that's like a quarter of the year. It's like a quarter of your year. And also what's interesting is when you think about it, we have 55 days left till the end of the year. How many of those days are actually the holiday? There's only like maybe 5, maybe 6, possibly, where it's like you got Thanksgiving, maybe a business holiday party, the day of Christmas dinner or something. Maybe if you have more than one family member, you're going to different family members. That's it. So that's really what we're talking about. And so we want to try to set yourself up for the most success to manage your mind for those exception times, but also remembering that you have normal days of just normal days. They're just like any other day. And managing your mind around that, thinking about it that way, I don't know about you, but that just like takes the pressure down. It just it's such a relief. So I want to back up to the plan of action is planning with starting up. The reason you plan is so that you can have a way to measure it. So in the past, I wouldn't plan at all. I would just be like shocked to see the scale on January 1st and be like, well, what happened? So planning with your future self in mind, how do you want to feel? Like just ask yourself how you want to feel on January 1st and setting up a doable goal. So it could be, and we talk about this in coaching is, do you want to gain weight? Is it realistic would you like to lose weight? Would you like to maintain? Or would you be willing to gain some weight? And what will go into that decision? And as long as you love your reasons for that decision, you just pick whatever it is that you want to pick for your goal. So one of the things that I love to make sure is that it's doable. So if it's to gain some weight, to be real, to make it measurable and however many pounds you want. If it's to lose some weight, make sure you're choosing a weight number that feels really good to you, that feels really doable. You know what's coming up. You know the exception foods that are coming. If you want to lose 5 pounds, great. If you want to lose 10 pounds, that's also doesn't matter. But what I love to do is whenever I have a goal that I'm like, I'm going to stretch myself because we on this end of things, we're like, yeah, I'm gonna, woohoo, whatever, do it. And then according to Jon Acuff, one of my favorite authors, he's like, just for fun, just for kicks, cut your goal in half. And that way, if you overshoot it, even better, who cares? Like, that's great. You can celebrate, but most likely you'll just kind of like reduce your expectation because who you are going to be then, or the day that when you're having issues day to day, it's going to help you to be encouraged and focused on the actual goal. Making that measurable, it can be a weight loss goal. It could be a measurement of your body goal. It could also be a goal that is like very specific on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10 of, I don't want to yell at my, cousin or whatever the thing is. I want to get through the holidays without having a meltdown. In my case, I get headaches because I get super excited. So that might be one of my goals. Maybe this year I could have maybe limit my headaches to, I don't know, instead of 5, have 2 headaches or something, to learn how to calm down my nervous system and stuff like that. So it can be whatever the measurement wants to be. I love the idea of making a measurable goal. So last year, I would say I showed up in my self-love. I was like a 1 or a 2. This year, my goal is going to be a 5 for self-love. I'm going to just try to do a little bit better this year of really having my own back, talking to myself nicely, whatever that is. So just make it a measurable goal. And that helps you to be able to celebrate it once you can see where you are on that. The third one was have the courage to evaluate. So it does take courage to evaluate, to actually look at your numbers, to actually notice what you actually did eat, what the number on the scale is, be able to be willing to look at it. I love the illustration of you guys know about little kids, right? So, you've seen them go, can't see me, ha ha ha, you can't find me. And that's what we do to ourselves, right? We hide behind our own self when we're looking for it, when we don't want to look at what we're actually eating. Really, it can't hurt us, right? So just look at it and notice it. And most importantly, have compassion for yourself as you're looking at that information. Notice that it does take courage. It does take some fortitude to look at the actual food, the amounts you're eating, what you're eating, and then decide to evaluate. Was this food worth it? Sometimes, guess what, folks? The ice cream is worth it. If it was a special thing or a special cake, it might be worth it. And you just agree to take the hit on the scale. Sometimes it might not be worth it, and you learn from it from a place of love and go, you know what? That wasn't worth it. I kind of screwed up. I'm going to take that information. So next time this thing comes up, I'll be ready and I can decide ahead of time what I want to do. So if there anyone has questions, you can type it. I have the chat open. No one else can see it, only me. So please feel free to just jot down any questions in the chat. I'm going to pause every once in a while for questions. We're also going to, after the teaching part is over, I'll have time just for plain old questions. Or if anyone would like to come on for coaching, we can do that too. So if you feel comfortable doing that. So any questions? Well, I'm here. Are there any questions? You can just wave your hand, wave, or just, yeah. Okay. Moving on. Next topic. Okay. This is one of my favorites, right? Anticipate the obstacles. So I love to visualize ahead of time. This is why the most important thing is number one, is sort of visualize ahead of time. So when you anticipate obstacles, my first thought is like, I don't know, like you don't, like a lot of times you don't want to even go there, right? So one of the tricks I love to use, and that really seems to help, is just kind of close your eyes, think about whatever the event is. So in my case, it's Thanksgiving. I'm getting a little, we'll talk about it. I'm getting choked up because our Thanksgiving is going to be small this year. So I'm trying to visualize how I'm going to feel when it won't be as full. There won't be as many people, but how do I want to show up? What do I want to think about? How do I want to prepare? How do I want to think about the people that are coming to our home? Or if we're going to we're not exactly sure what we're doing, where are you going to be? Visualize the place where you're going to go, walking in the door, how you want to feel about yourself, what kind of food, if you want to be, as you're like going right through the motions, you're getting out of the car, you're carrying the stuff in. Are you hungry? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the largest person in the room? Are you feeling like, ugh, this thing used to fit last year and now it doesn't? Like, what is sort of like coming up for you that could be like that same old mind, the things that have been going on through in your mind as you have done in the past? So obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but we can, base on what has happened in the past, how we have felt, what we have experienced. The person so-and-so is going to ask a question. So any grandkids yet? Or what's going on with your like, whatever is going to possibly trigger you, think about that ahead of time so that you are ready. That's where the visualization comes in so much. So that's what's so helpful. Then you list each one. You actually go ahead and write them down. Like, so-and-so is going to say something and it's going to make me feel like defensive, or I'm, I don't know, my kid's not showing up the way I would have liked, or my kid compared to their kid is like not doing as well in school, or whatever, or my grandkids aren't, whatever, fill in the blank of what you might think about that might trigger you, and just write it out, list it out. Think about what your clothes you're wearing, list those out. Think about what food you're going to eat. Am I going to be hungry? Write that down. Then you're going to hypothesize several ways you want to overcome each one. So I'll just give you a little example of when it comes to hunger. If you're going to be hungry, like I don't want to eat all their exception foods. So very often I will bring some nuts in the car on my way there so that I'm not like ravenously hungry, or the food takes longer to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I've gotten something nutritious in my body before that. Or I really want to be hungry because I know what food we're having and I love it. Food tastes so much better when I'm actually a little bit hungry, and hunger, as we know, is not an emergency. So you want to be hungry. There may be times where you actually want to be hungry for that food. But anyway, all that is to say is just sort of like anticipate it. When it comes to like how you want to feel about your body, you may think, okay, I know I'm likely to get triggered by so-and-so. So maybe I'm going to spend some time journaling about how I feel about them and how I feel about myself and how I want to have my own back this time, and how I am going to be gracious and loving to them regardless of what comes out of their mouth, or all that, that kind of stuff. So that might be something that you anticipate. I find journaling and just having some quiet time really helps. So I'm going to give you an example. There's of something that happened to me. I noticed this is really helpful in noticing a pattern, right? So you're observing, you're evaluating. I had a pattern one time that I noticed that it wasn't so much the day of Thanksgiving that I had a problem, it was the day after. So I got coached about this, and my coach said, well, first of all, why are you so like, I was like, really, I get, again, very uptight, or I don't know, I overdo it, I overwork. And I was trying to figure out what was I overdoing. And it occurred to me that I make, so I don't really enjoy cooking a whole lot. And so in my mind, this is, again, this was before, this is the before, right? So now I'm a little better now. But before, I was like, I hate to cook. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to make extra. So I would make double the recipe. So my job at Thanksgiving is sweet potato casserole. And I do make a very fabulous one, I'll have you know. But I would make enough for, instead of like 8 portions, I would make enough for 16 portions. Because if I'm going to get all that stuff out, I might as well just double it. That was in my head, that was my logic. Turns out what was underneath it was, I never get this food. I want to make extra because I really want to bring it home, can eat it and enjoy it. And once I uncovered that there was like this scarcity that I want to make a lot of it. So first of all, it was way too much work because I was doubling my work. Secondly, guess what happened? After like overworking the day before and the day of Thanksgiving, I would come home exhausted, headachy, and I have a refrigerator full of leftovers, like a lot of leftovers. And guess what I did? I overate them every single time. So the way I realized, okay, this is a pattern. Number one, I guess one of the things that the way I solved for that was I just make whatever food I love all the year long. Then I don't have to have that scarcity mindset that this is the only time I get it. So if I want sweet potato casserole, I'll make it for myself. So that right away was super helpful and just took the temperature down. Second of all, I make the appropriate amount. And then third, I don't ever take the leftovers home because I know I'm likely to want to overeat the day after. Even if I'm having a fabulous time, I still almost always want to eat the day after of the holiday. So I just really refuse to bring any leftovers home. That's how or I'll find a way to, like, if it's at my house, I'll send them all. I'll send it all out. Or I may go ahead and throw it right in the freezer, portion it out and throw it right in the freezer. Anyway, all these are ways to hypothesize and notice and create some other opportunities to anticipate that. So, all right, moving on. Lastly is letting go of perfectionism. Oh my, perfectionism. It's one of those things, especially when there's like Instagram posts and Pinterest pages and Hallmark Channel, whatever, that families should look like this. Families should act like this. And if they don't, you're obviously substandard in some way, right? So, number one, comparison. So not a friend. Here's the little rule for comparison that I've just discovered that I really love, and that is we can't possibly compare ourselves to another person's full entire life. We only know our own life. We're only getting a slice of the other person's life, whoever that other person, the others are, whether it be even family members or people we see online on social media. We're getting a little tiny sliver of their life. We can't possibly know what they're thinking or feeling or their whole big picture. So unless you're comparing to their whole thing, it's really not an appropriate comparison. So I thought that was fascinating when you think about it. It's like, it's not really, there's no point. So being overly concerned, this is called people pleasing, or being overly concerned what we think other people are thinking, also known as people pleasing. Whatever we think other people are thinking. We can't, first of all, number one, we can't possibly know what other people are thinking. We're not mind readers. And so a lot of times, this is really what jumps us into this perfectionism is, I know they're expecting this, whatever pie that I make, and they'll be so disappointed. They'll be mad at me if I don't make this pie. Again, they might say those words, that's possible, but first, it's most important to go to the next one, which is, first of all, decide what you really want. A lot of us as women, we don't even know what we want. We make the pie because we think the other person is going to feel a certain way. So we make the pie for them because we think that they're going to think that we're not a good person if we don't make the pie, without even evaluating, going, wait a minute, do I even want this pie? I don't even like this pie. Decide what you really want first. The most important thing is, and here's the thing, there's a reason for this. All right, people, we can't possibly control how another person's going to act or feel. We think we can. We think that we know what other people are thinking, but there's no possible way for us to actually have that much power. The only power we have is over ourselves. And sometimes what it means is feeling discomfort one way or the other. We're either going to feel we'll feel uncomfortable not making the thing, or making a version of the thing that we want. Like, say it's a lighter version of something, if you want to do it that way, and be willing to have their disapproval, or making the thing that we don't want in order to gain their approval, but we feel uncomfortable in ourselves. It's discomfort either way. Choose your discomfort. You get to choose your discomfort. Very often we think we don't. That's where this comes in, is we think, oh, I have to do what they want. No, you actually don't have to, but be willing to face that discomfort. Does that make sense? That you might have to feel that discomfort. And then lastly, and most importantly, be kind. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We don't know what other people are going through as they're coming to our home or we're going to theirs. We can't possibly know their inner dialogue. When it comes to ourselves, and we screw up, we overeat, the number on the scale isn't what we want. Again, just trying to dial it back. It's not the end of the world. This is like a very tiny slice in time. These are the holidays. We have the whole rest of the year. And more importantly, when we're losing weight, it took me about 2 years. It's a long process. It's the big picture, right? We want to learn how to manage our mind regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what else is going on. And guess what? There's going to be more exceptions coming up, because then there's holidays, then there's someone's baptism, then there's a wedding to go to, then there's going to be constantly ways to learn to manage our mind. As we learn to do it through the holidays, this is such great practice, because we're going to have to learn. The more we do it, the better we'll get as we go through time, if that makes sense. So one of the ways I wanted to talk about this in particular is comparing what my Thanksgiving is going to look like versus other people's. This year, we're at that phase of life. I'm the youngest one of the youngest in my family. So our family is a bit older. So our table is getting smaller and smaller, and we don't have a lot of kids in our family. Poor Ben. I think he's the only like kid or cousin or grandkid that's kind of around. So this year there's some health issues with some of my other family members. So it may just be myself and like just 4 of us for Thanksgiving. And right away, I'm going into comparison mode of missing my family, or feeling like it's not going to be what it used to be. So even comparing to the past, sometimes that comparison came up. Then there are those of us in the past, I would do this too. Like, there's no, I can't win, right? I would be miserable because there'd be so many people coming to my house, and oh my gosh, my house isn't clean enough, and they're going to expect blah, 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 blah. And I have all these people, and they have to be accommodated. I have to think about, they like certain types of foods, and like all stressed out and working and all that kind of stuff, and getting uptight about that as well. Interesting, right? That it doesn't seem to matter which side, that there's always like a way to spin it negatively. Instead is thinking about the people in your life. And when the sadness comes up, because the chairs are empty, like at our table, there's a lot of empty chairs right now. My parents are both gone, my sister Maggie, and other people, aunt, uncle, that would normally be at the table for Thanksgiving. Being in gratitude for those people, and being sad and feeling that sadness and allowing that sadness. Because if I wasn't sad, it would mean I didn't love them. That the sadness is actually an indicator of how much, and the depth of the feeling. And to sort of celebrate that I miss them, and that's okay. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to take time to notice that feeling in your body and nurture that, and do whatever feels good to you to nurture those times of sadness when you're not around the people that you would love to be around. In the same way, if you have a house full, is maybe just taking a little moment, couple minutes, to be in gratitude for each person, and just spend a little time thinking about each person and why you love them and their, what they have to offer, and kind of being a little bit of gratitude for each one, and accommodating, being thrilled, because it's not going to last forever, right? This, as we know, from my circumstance right now, time is fleeting. It's a season. These are all seasons, right? I might be coming up to a different season. We don't know. The comparison is where we have so much of the trouble, I think, is feeling like it should look different than it is. You argue with reality instead of sort of accepting it, allowing for all those feelings, all those emotions, and nurturing yourself through it. So that is all I have. Does anyone have any questions or comments? You can type them in the chat. You can ask, just unmute yourself and ask. I'm good with any or all of those. And if not, that's okay. Lisa, I guess we'll start with Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you and I talked about this last year, but my issue isn't the meals. The meals I'm usually fine with. It's the cookies.
Yes.
I'm not tempted by cookies any other time of the year until they're homemade.
Yeah.
And there's certain ones, and those are here like the whole holiday season, it seems.
Yeah.
So I know last year I just didn't make a lot, and I made them later and things like that. And I loved the thing that you told me about, instead of tasting the batter, take what I would taste and put it on a plate and see how much that adds up to later on. That really helped me last year, but I just need a refresher on cookies because I know it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to plan for that for the next webinar, but I'm so glad you brought it up, because probably most people are getting started, whatever the cooking is. And that is, you find a plate. This is for those of you guys who don't know, that you find a plate, and as you're cooking, instead of the bites and licks and taste, you'd throw whatever that amount is on the plate. You get to eat it. You tell yourself, I can eat that, but it's just bringing awareness to that batter. So that's while you're making the cookies. So you're talking about making the cookies, but also having them around, Lisa?
Yeah. The fact that they're around, and I know they're around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I could make some I don't like, but
you could. So that's again, that anticipating the obstacle and hypothesizing some different strategies. For sure, that's one. Making them later so they're not around as long. What about freezing them?
Well, my question is too, you said about not being able to anticipate other people or people pleasing.
Yeah.
But I know my family expects certain cookies and different things that are around the holidays, and I have a son coming in from California the week after Christmas, and he'll be here that whole week. And and he actually asks to have all of the traditional things because he doesn't get that where he's at. So I kind of feel like I do have to do that.
Okay.
So anyway,
let me just pause. If this is okay for me to do this, let me just pause you for a second. Here's where our language is kind of important, right? Then when you say I have to, how's that feel, right? In your body, it's ugh. But the truth is, you actually
doesn't feel like that, though. It doesn't feel like that to me. Yeah. To me, it's like, yes, I get to make.
Okay, so that's the sneaky,
family favorites. I'm so excited. But then they're here.
Right. So again, what is there are a couple things that I was thinking of that you want to, because you love your son. And I know we can't make him happy, but you're choosing to do that. So let's just own it. That's really sometimes just changing it from I have to I get to, or I want to because I love him. And guess what? Then it's my job. The only one I can control is me. is how many cookies I get to eat. I choose to eat. And here's the way I like to look at that. Just like with the example of the sweet potato casserole, once I realize I can make it anytime I want, you just put it on your plan. Like we know we plan our food, right? If we put it on your plan, you can have any of those cookies anytime.
Gotcha.
Eating them with control, eating them with awareness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you choose not to have sugar, like again, finding out like some people don't want to have sugar for whatever reason. I don't know if that's your thing. If you don't want to eat them at all, I guess like that's a good question. Do you want to have them or do you rather not?
I want to have them, but I know I won't. I know I'll limit.
Yeah.
I will limit. Like I might even make a little plate for myself that has like 3 cookies. And when that's gone, and there's no more cookies that day.
Okay.
Where I
Yeah.
used to just sneak into the cookie jar and
Yeah.
tell myself, well, that one was small. So I could have another one. And it's really only like having one because that first one was small.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I'm good
Exactly.
at deceiving myself, but
Right. The whole like, yeah,
I have gotten better at telling myself the truth.
yeah, yeah. So I love that. So that's what I mean, there are some cookies that I love but it's our family. Like it's not just that they're cookies, that they're dough and sugar and whatever. They're like my grandmother's recipe. And it means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family. And I enjoy them. And eating them with intention is really all that like there's nothing else you can do besides that. If you want to eliminate them, that's again, as long as you love your reasons. That's what I like to think about is liking your reasons for it instead of feeling like you're at the effect of I have to have this here. I wouldn't normally, and it's true. We are going to be surrounded by foods that we're not normally surrounded by. So back to the beginning, what's your goal? Is your
Mhm.
goal to maintain, lose, or gain? Like, would you be willing to gain a little in order to enjoy some of those cookies occasionally without just owning it and loving your reasons? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then who else? Kathy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, mine's people pleasing. Hard
Yeah.
work on it. I have one son in particular who's very health conscious, and he hates the fact that his wife has introduced candy to his children, their children. Um, he's just really opposed to that kind of stuff. So, growing up in my family, it was 5 kinds of cookies and 2 kinds of candy and 3 pies. And so, of course, I don't do that much, but I do cook. I do make chocolate candy with peanuts and, all that stuff. I make sweets. But I can feel his disapproval,
Hmm.
especially when his children ask if they can have it. I don't ever offer it to them. But if they ask, so it's that balance between being a grandmother and honoring my son's wishes. My daughter-in-laws love cookies and sweets and stuff. And, I feel like everybody manages it well, except for maybe me sometimes. But I'm torn about, you know, family tradition and honoring how my son feels. But I feel like how he feels is on him, not me. And anyway, I just struggle with that every year,
Yeah.
last 4 or 5 years, especially.
It's so interesting because that's the last thing you want to have during the holidays. Like they're supposed to be joyful, and you're making the candy because of the people in your life you love. You want to express yourself that way, and as long as you love your reasons, that's where being in integrity with yourself and loving those reasons, asking yourself, what's the worst case scenario? He might be not happy. And maybe it's a conversation you decide to have with him and explain your point of view and that, you know, he's not the only person in the room, possibly, right?
Yeah.
That you matter too, right?
Yeah, and the other son watches what he eats, but he's far more relaxed about everything. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
son is just, and I think it's an overreaction to his father was extremely obese and died at 57, and he just does not want to live like that.
And so that's what's so nice to like, what a beautiful, really great observation, I would say, is that you get it, right? That a lot of times when people are having a very visceral reaction, asking yourself what could be behind it. So that's amazing awareness, actually.
And
to
I'm
think,
sure I know I scare him too with my weight and other health issues. And
yeah,
none of mine are life threatening, but anyway,
it's understandable. Yeah,
hypersensitive to that.
yeah. And having compassion on him
Mhm.
for having that role. But at the same time, again, going back to you deciding what you want, like, do you want to, if you want, you don't have to answer this, but just really thinking about it, I really do want to make this candy. I love it. It's a tradition. I enjoy it in proportion, and he will have the opportunity to manage his expectations. And that's maybe a really amazing conversation you guys could have, even from that place of compassion, like I get it, honey, but
Mhm.
where you're coming from. And thank you so much for loving me and loving your kids so much. But in this case, he's married. Like he's not the only person. Like again, he's kind of not the only person.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Anyone else? No. Okay. All right. For those who are on the replay, I just want to let you guys know I am available for one-on-one coaching. If you would like to join me we do 6 months weekly calls, and I would welcome the opportunity to work through some of these issues independently, one-on-one. So just want to offer that. I will be I have the holiday planning guide. For those of you who don't already have it, I can put that in I'll email it to you guys because you're on the email thing. So I'll email the PDF of that. I have some I always tweak it. So it's different than last year. So I'm always like upgrading it a little bit with some better questions to sort of anticipate some of these things, hypothesize your solutions. And it might be more than one. And here's the thing that's so neat about evaluation is you try one thing and see how it goes. With the idea that the scale might go up, like you might overeat sometimes, but using that as a learning opportunity to go, okay, well, we're not doing that because that did not have the outcome that I wanted. And just use that as information. So that's what I love to do. That's why I love the hypothesis idea. It's like just as a scientist, not in any judgmental way, but just sort of like really being curious. So, oh, thank you. Debbie just wrote the visualizing part. So yeah, visualizing ahead of time, kind of like really putting yourself in that position, trying to remember what it was like. If you've had a recent, family gathering, it might be like top of mind, that kind of thing might be really helpful. So great. I'm so glad this was helpful. Thank you guys for coming to my first training. This is so fun. I appreciate your support and have a great day. If anyone has anything else to say, now's your chance. That's it. All right.
Thanks,
All right,
Amy.
ladies. I love you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, bye.